The Dallas Cowboys 2020 NFL season was not fun at all. I mean, of course, they had to deal with the usual hate since the Dallas Cowboys are one of the most hated teams in the NFL, if not the most hated team in the NFL, and they were expected to be a pretty good team. However, once Dak Prescott got injured, those dreams were just crushed. They finished the year 6-10 though, and today I wanted to talk about this team and what's next for them and what I would do for success in the future. But before we do get started, if you guys enjoyed, make sure you hit that like button as it really helps out the channel and it shows your support for this content. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new and enjoy the videos on here so you do not miss out on any new videos. I am also trying to reach 500 subscribers and it would mean a lot to me if we could reach that goal. We are sort of close, we are getting there, and as a special I will react to my first 2 videos ever. So if you guys want to see that and enjoy the content on here, make sure to subscribe. But with that being said, let's get started. And I want to start out by talking about the Dallas Cowboys roster, and we should start out with the, for now, quarterback of the roster, Dak Prescott. Now, he will be a free agent, more on the free agency stuff later, but he hardly played in 2020, but hey, he wasn't terrible in those games, as he passed for 1,856 yards, 9 passing touchdowns, and completed 68% of his passes. Now, Dak Prescott, there's a small chance that he's not, there's a ton of stuff going on with his contract and all, but Dak Prescott is a player I'd definitely bring back, and for now, I view this guy as the franchise quarterback of this team. Next is Ezekiel Elliott, and Ezekiel Elliott did not have a good year. He had 979 rushing yards, 6 rushing touchdowns, and averaged 4 yards a carry. However, the guy did not reach 1,000 rushing yards this past season and had a lot of issues with ball control. There is a chance that maybe the Cowboys move on from Ezekiel Elliott, considering the fact that Tony Pollard played well, and running backs in the modern NFL are really replaceable, and maybe they view Ezekiel Elliott as a guy that's kind of not completely needed on the team, especially with his struggles this past season. And all those fumbles, maybe Ezekiel Elliott is not a Cowboy in the 2021 season, but hey, Ezekiel Elliott, let's just hope next year he can have a bounce back season. Up next is Amari Cooper, and Amari Cooper, he had a pretty good year. He had 1,114 receiving yards, 5 receiving touchdowns, and caught 71% of his passes. And a majority of these came with a mix of not Dak Prescott at quarterback. Andy Dalton. I can't remember who else, but there's a ton. It was mostly backups and third stringers that were thrown to him, but he still had this good year, and let's just hope that next year he can have a really good year with Dak Prescott, hopefully being 100% healthy, and maybe they can make a deep run with them. Anyways, next up I want to talk about CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb had a pretty good rookie year. He had 935 receiving yards, 5 receiving touchdowns, and caught 67% of his passes. Next up, I want to talk about Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup did have a down year, as he did just have 843 receiving yards, 5 receiving touchdowns, and only caught 56% of his targets. But at the same time, we do have to keep in mind that, he did not have Dak Prescott as his quarterback for a majority of the year. Not only that, but he's in a stacked receiving core. CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, plus Dalton Schultz, who happens to be the next player, so spoiler for that. But, he's got a stacked up, receiving core, so obviously, he did have less targets probably, but, even then, he's still a pretty good player. And as I said before, the next player is Dalton Schultz. He had a pretty good year, and he's a pretty good receiving tight end, as he had 615 receiving yards, 4 receiving touchdowns, and caught 71% of his targets. Moving to the defensive side of the ball, I want to talk about Aldon Smith, and he was actually pretty decent in Dallas, as he had 5 sacks and 20 pressures. Next, I want to talk about DeMarcus Lawrence. And DeMarcus Lawrence, he's still a pretty good player, but hasn't been as productive since 2018, as he had just 6.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, but he did have 26 pressures. Next, I want to talk about Jalen Smith, who is a pretty decent player and has had a pretty decently productive season with 1 interception and 5 passes defended. Next, I want to talk about Leighton Vander Esch. Leighton Vander Esch, he did struggle with injury, and unfortunately, ever since 2018, he just hasn't been as productive. But maybe in 2021, he can finally break that streak of not having as productive years, and maybe he can have a really good year in 2021. And the final player I want to talk about is Trevon Diggs. And now Trevon Diggs, he had an up and down rookie year. The guy did have issues when it came to coverage, obviously, but cornerbacks do take time to get used to in the NFL. But he also did have 3 interceptions and 14 passes defended. But overall, if he can as he gets more used to the NFL, this guy can be a pretty good player for them in the future. But moving on, let's go to the other stuff. And the Cowboys offense was pretty good. And I mean, even with those backup quarterbacks, I mean, with Dak Prescott, a fully healthy Cowboys offense is very good with that stacked receiving core, Ezekiel Elliott, plus Dak Prescott. I mean, you just got a really stacked offense. But their defense was terrible. That was as evident as they were ranked 28th, the 28th best defense overall. And while they did improve a little bit at the end, they still sucked defensively, and it was the right thing that they fired Mike Nolan. Now, maybe Dan Quinn is the answer. I mean, I know the guy is addicted to blowing leads, but maybe he is just best when he's just a defensive coordinator, and as a defensive coordinator, maybe he can be good. I mean, the guy was the defensive coordinator of one of the best defensive units of all time, but who knows what Dan Quinn does. Now, looking at what they have to do in the offseason, first off, keep Dak Prescott. Just keep him, okay? Now, I know Dak Prescott's basically just going to take up all of their cap space, so I really don't expect them to do a lot in free agency this year, aside from re-signing Dak Prescott. And there have been slight rumors that Dak Prescott won't re-sign with the Cowboys, but if I'm the Cowboys, I'm paying Dak Prescott, okay? I mean, it was pretty obvious that without Dak Prescott, they are not a good team, and I don't know if they will get a franchise. I mean, they already have a franchise quarterback here, and they should pay him. And while the guy has had issues with beating teams over 500 and all that stuff, Dak Prescott's a good quarterback, and I think they should pay him. Now, if this guy is demanding like a whole bank's worth of money, I don't know if he's necessarily worth 40 million, but I would pay Dak Prescott and keep him. Now, I do think, as I said before, I didn't say this before, but I do think they will look to the draft to address their weaknesses mainly, as he's probably going to take up basically all of their cap space, and they have to address that defense first, okay? They were awful, as they allowed 29.6 points per game overall. Well, yeah, that's how many points per game they allowed. And while they were an okay passing defense, their run defense, my god, it was terrible. I do think they should also probably try to look to improve the offensive line too and get younger there, as they do have some good offensive linemen, except they are aging. They were banged up on the offensive line this year. Not only that, but it's no longer one of the best units in the NFL like it used to be, and they definitely got to maintain a good offensive line to make sure Dak Prescott is healthy, and so that offense is, 100% can be the best it can be. And that's especially going to be, you really do need a good offensive line when you're playing a team like Washington, and they have one of the best defensive lines, if not the best defensive line in the NFL. Now, some draft targets people they could target in the draft could be guys like Kwity Paye, Gregory Rousseau to help on the edge, and in the cornerback position, maybe they could look at Patrick Surtain or Caleb Farley, and maybe in the second round they could also target a guy like Jay Tufele, hopefully I pronounced that right. And to improve the offensive line, I'd also maybe try and get Rashawn Slater. Sorry about that. And J.C. Horn is also an option, but in this year's draft, in the first round, I would easily go after the defense, as it is really just their biggest issue. I do think they can definitely find an offensive lineman in this draft. I do think they can probably maybe get a guy in the second round or the third round. But yeah, they should definitely go and try to improve that defense in the first round. But the Dallas Cowboys this year, they got unlucky as Dak Prescott got injured, and I'm not surprised at all that they finished the year 6-10. I'm really not. However, it's clear they got some flaws on their roster, and if they can make the proper improvements in this year's offseason, and Jerry Jones is not an idiot, then I do think they can easily make a run next year. But with that being said, that will wrap up today's video. If you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure you hit that like button, as it really helps out the channel. Subscribe if you guys are new and enjoyed the content on here, as I'm trying to reach 500 subscribers, and it would mean a lot to me if we could reach that goal. as a special, I will react to my first 2 videos ever. So if you guys want to see that and enjoy the content on here, make sure to subscribe. But with that being said, I'm out, you guys.